building a better Bay Area for a safe and secure future. This is ABC 7 News.
Hi, everybody. Once again, I'm Dion Lim, and welcome to our daily program called Getting Answers. What we're doing is we're asking experts your questions every day at 3 o'clock to get answers for you in real time. So today, we'll be talking to an incoming Stanford med student studying epidemiology, but she's actually going viral for posting a photo of blueberries she picked while working on a farm. We think her story, and not to mention her attitude, are pretty inspiring. But first, let's answer your questions about COVID-19. You can submit them right now on our Facebook live stream. So joining us right now is infectious disease specialist with UCSF. This is Dr. Peter Chin Hong. As always, many thanks. Thank you for joining us once again.
Thanks for having me on, Dion.
All right, right away, let's get to the latest on vaccine news, because we just heard from Dr. Fauci not too long ago saying he's anticipating a vaccine to be ready by next year. How soon do you think we'll see a vaccine? I've seen reports out that in the past, vaccines have taken years and years to perfect.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are surprised by how fast this particular round of vaccine development is going. I mean, so far we call it Operation Warp Speed, and that gives you an idea to the speed. So there are several things that make COVID-19 vaccines different from before. The first is, of course, we're in 2020 now, so there's been a lot of development in science, so people can upscale and move things further along. I think the most important thing probably is the bureaucratic red tape that's been sort of shut down or lowered because of the federal commitment to this, not only in the United States, but all over the world. And then thirdly, I think from the initial vaccine studies, our immune response seems to be a little bit better than people thought to a variety of different vaccines.
I have to say, when you use the term fast tracking, I get a little unsettled, because I think of an iPhone, for example. When there's a new update to the iPhone software, you don't necessarily always want to be the first person to download it. You want to work out a few of the kinks. Should we be concerned about the quality of the vaccine?
Certainly safety is always a concern. I think, you're always balancing safety and efficacy. But I know that people will not release a vaccine unless they're very sure it's safe, at least from the people they've studied so far. And we can talk about caveats to that. But because vaccines have a lot of meaning right now in American society, and, with the anti-vaccine campaign and such, if we release a vaccine that's unsafe, that will jeopardize all of vaccination. So I think people are very, very careful about that aspect.
Indeed, and not to mention how these vaccines will be rolled out, because of course there's got to be a lot of testing. You talked about clinical trials and the red tape. This could be a much longer process. Next year does not mean January of 2021 by any means.
Certainly not. Also, there'll be likely a phased rollout. So you're going to target the people who will benefit the most. So perhaps healthcare workers, people who work in the healthcare setting, even if they're not a provider. So people who work in the hospital kitchens, janitors, also people who work with individuals who are high risk and high risk individuals, maybe the elderly, folks in nursing homes, because the vaccine will take some time to manufacture, even though a lot of money is built in to the distribution aspect of it as well.
That makes a lot of sense, those who are most vulnerable. We are getting a question now from Instagram. I'd like to share this. It says, do you think a vaccine will actually get us out of this situation and manage the virus? That's a great question. I've heard from several now.
I think it makes theoretical sense that an effective vaccine will do the trick and sort of bring the virus to low enough levels. And people have heard about this magic number of 70% herd immunity. And herd immunity, just to review, is exactly what it sounds like. You have a herd of cattle, maybe there's some sick cattle at the back. If a diseased cattle comes to this group of cattle, or the herd of cattle, the well cattle in the front, if enough people are well or vaccinated, will protect the vulnerable cattle at the back. So we need 70% of the people to get vaccinated. Right now, surveys show that about 50% of Americans are ready to get vaccinated, and that's a little concerning.
We do have a lot of work to go when it gets to those percentages. Another question coming in from Instagram is COVID-19 Airborne, great question.
Yeah, so COVID-19 in its spirit is not airborne. When I think about airborne, I think about measles and tuberculosis. To give you some context of how airborne in its essence is, if somebody has measles, they sit in a room, they leave the room, and then even in a few hours later, you come in the room, you can get measles because they remain suspended in the air. TB is less infectious than measles. It's all a spectrum. And then influenza, COVID-19, some of these other respiratory viruses, they're mainly droplets, but you can give those droplets superpowers, like a can of hairspray. When you spray it, the droplets become finer. And those superpower aspects include when you're in the hospital, you get a breathing tube because you're spraying air and there are lots of droplets in there, or you're getting a camera inside the lungs, or when you're, singing or blowing a tuba or a wind instrument, they can sometimes give those droplets superpowers. But for most intents and purposes in the community, we mainly think about droplets, and that's why a regular surgical mask will protect you.
There has been so much talk about making sure you wear your mask or some kind of face covering. Elaborate a little bit more on those droplets, because I've seen some diagrams that show just how widespread they can become and how the air can make those travel even more, especially if there's a wind gust out even in public.
So the outdoors is both potentially your enemy as well as your friend. It's mainly your friend. It's your enemy if somebody's running by and shouting and screaming at you. But remember that when you have those superpower droplets, they get diluted the further they get away. So the dose of virus that you get into you potentially, especially if you're wearing a mask, is going to be very negligible. And even if you get sick by the virus getting in from whatever reason, like for example, if somebody's shouting and screaming and running in a circle around you, then the mask will lower the dose of virus you would get, if you get any at all, and potentially make you less sick. And there's a lot of evidence from other infections where the dose of virus may make a difference.
That's a very good visual. I certainly hope nobody is standing around us or running around and yelling at us outside in public anytime soon. You put this very well, that they almost have a super quality to them. It kind of is reflected maybe in the superhero figurines you have behind you here. But speaking of these gatherings, we are seeing so many of these warnings from local counties about private gatherings, whether they be inside or outside. For example, San Mateo, they issued a letter saying private gatherings are one of the main spreaders. And Solano County's public health officer said 95% of recent cases are from private gatherings. What exactly makes these more dangerous? And is there anything the county can do?
Yeah, so I think the dangerous aspects of private gatherings are, first of all, they're not visible to the public. We see social media pictures of people lying on the beach or in packed bars on Santana Row, but nobody goes in a private gathering necessarily and takes all these images. But some of the risks, first of all, I'll start with the risks that we would normally think about. Lots of noses and mouths together close by, indoors versus outdoors. Maybe it's a small house, so there's less ventilation, so you have less air currents to dilute the virus. But the most important thing about the indoor setting and the outbreaks that we've seen recently in multi-generational indoor settings is that it's the familiarity aspect. It's the emotional aspect. You don't think of Uncle Harry or your Aunt Sue as being purveyors of COVID-19. Maybe you haven't seen them in a few months. You're there for graduation party. It seems kind of rude to wear your mask and then hug your Uncle Harry. So I think that is probably part of it. And also people are just tired of, being good for all these months. But I think, we started seeing this around the Sacramento area first, around graduation. And I think it just continued.
I can see that, because it's almost human nature. When the pandemic first began, we were told to limit contact. It's our first inclination to just hold our hand out and shake someone's hand, or maybe give them a hug if you haven't seen them in a very long time. So those are habits that are challenging to break. What would you like to see counties do in order to maybe quell this type of behavior? And how do you do it in a way that will get people to listen?
That's a great question, Dion. I think there's no easy answer, but I think, first of all, we think about ways in which we can quell the virus in the community. And it's really a triangle of test, trace, and isolate. So let's dissect that a little bit. So first of all, from the testing perspective, we have ramped up testing in California. We still need to do a lot better because although we've ramped up testing, there have been a lot of delays in lining up to get the test, and more concerningly, delays in getting the test result back. And every day you wait to get a test result back, you're just infecting more and more people. Let's think about the other two parts, trace and isolate. Tracing is very difficult a lot of times, particularly in minority populations where you may be suspicious, even though it's not a law enforcement person asking you for contact information of the people you've been around with and their names and addresses. So I think, people are trained in cultural sensitivity, but I think we need to do that more. And I think that might be, something that might be beneficial in this aspect. And the third part is isolation. It's not easy to isolate people if you don't have a second house in wine country or a part in the house where you can be isolated from your family, particularly if you're a caregiver for elderly folks in the family or you live in a multi-generational family. So easier said than done. So I think these are all challenges that we think about.
Okay, more with Dr. Chin Hong when we return. The conversation does continue on our live streams, including Facebook Live, where I'm going to be asking him about his own social practices. Stay with us. We'll be right back here on air, and the Facebook continues right now. Okay, so everybody, we are in commercial break. I'm juggling your questions and also addressing our special guest, who is Dr. Chin Hong. He spoke about a vaccine, his kind of expected, what he thinks will be the expected rollout. But yeah, we left off on air talking about these social gatherings. I think people would like to know, as a doctor, as a healthcare professional yourself, would you feel safe having a private gathering of some sort, maybe if it was outside, maybe if someone was celebrating a milestone anniversary? How would you do it safely from your perspective?
So I think that's a great question. From my perspective, I'm a little bit shy and I'm a very social person. I have to kind of pull my hands back before not hugging someone. And it's really kind of difficult to do shakas all the time. But I think, first of all, I start with my bubble. So are there people who I trust and have the same COVID values as myself, even if they're not in my bubble that I've had from the beginning of the epidemic? So, if I think I trust them, then outdoors is going to be safer than indoors. And then the size of the gathering is very important. So I wouldn't have a class reunion right now, even though I'm a very social person. I will have limited to a few people and really make sure I can socially distance if I'm not really sure where they've been for a while. And if you want numbers, I'd probably say 5 or 6 people max. 2 or 3 additional people from my household would be the way I think about it, because right now it's a little bit too risky to really go beyond that.
What did you call it again? Friend trust? I really like that. I might have to steal that term from myself. COVID trust?
Yeah. COVID values.
COVID values, yes. I think that's something that we all need to consider, because I do have friends who vary on this spectrum of what they find important and what they don't. We have just about 10 seconds left before we're heading back on air. So we'll be back with you in just a second. Here we go. Thank you for staying with us. We are back once again with UCSF infectious disease specialist, Dr. Peter Chin Hong. So many of you have been asking questions on Facebook, and I want to share one of those with you right now. Robert is asking, is it safe to turn on heating systems in apartment buildings come wintertime? Can COVID spread through the vents? This also goes with the question, doctor, that people in warmer climates are asking right about now.
So that's a great question. First of all, let's take the broader question of temperature and COVID. So COVID likes cold better than heat. So theoretically, a heating environment is more inhospitable to the virus than a cold environment, but it likes noses and mouths better than temperature. So if there are not people around, it doesn't matter if you're on Waikiki or Rio de Janeiro, you're going to get COVID, or Mexico City, as these pandemics have shown. To the heating question, we can isolate fragments of virus in ventilating systems, but there has been no evidence that that's the cause of actual transmissions. And that's because our testing strategy is so sensitive. By picking up fragments of RNA from the virus doesn't mean it's alive. And in practical terms, I'm not sure it's going to be as significant a source of transmission as just the noses and mouths around wintertime.
I see. I do want to get to as many questions as possible. This also coming from Facebook. If my 20-year-old has been with family and friends visiting on a beach in Atlantic City, should she get a test on return home after the flight? Should we quarantine until we get the test results?
Yes. I mean, I think a lot of people have talked about that. Your teen has gone to college, for example, even, or risk in a high prevalence area, and maybe they've been on the beach or have engaged with what teens normally do, which is normal, meeting their friends, and you're not really sure about what that person has done. Yes, testing, particularly if they're high-risk individuals in the household, elderly people with medical problems, heart disease, etc., you probably would test, wait a certain amount of time, which is generally 4 to 7 days, and then re-engage with the person if the teen continues to have safe behaviors.
Okay, we only have about a minute or so left, but I do want to ask you this question that also hits home for me personally, and one that I know that you're passionate about addressing because you tweeted about this. Herman Cain did not die from China virus. This is what you wrote on Twitter just a couple days ago, or the Kung flu. He died from failure to keep our community safe from COVID-19, absence of strong leadership, suppression of science, fueling hate in troubled times. Coming from your perspective as an Asian American and also from a medical professional standpoint, what do you want to tell everyone about the use of those two terms, Kung flu and China virus?
Thanks for asking that important question, Dion. I think it's very, very tough to use a term like, and frankly, dangerous to use a term like China virus because it has very different meaning than, say, Lyme disease. Lyme disease was from Lyme, Connecticut. There's no meaning, race or ethnicity or politics associated with Lyme, Connecticut, but there's a lot of meaning associated with China, and particularly used in a derogatory way like Kung flu. So what that has meant is thousands of hate crimes and people coughing on elderly Asian Americans. I saw a man almost being knocked over in a crosswalk with someone shouting out Chinese virus at him. Countless reports. It's dangerous. It's not just where the virus comes from.
Dr. Peter Chin Hong, as always, a pleasure having you. So knowledgeable. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much, Dion.
Now, when we return, the story of an incoming Stanford med student who had no luck finding a summer job and posted a photo of herself picking fruit in the fields. Now, that image went viral, certainly opened up a lot of discussion surrounding farm workers. We'll talk to her and get her fascinating story next. Stay with us. We are taking a break on air, but that conversation continues once again on Facebook and abc7news.com. Okay, what was that, Eric? Okay, fantastic. Just for all of you who are getting up to speed with how our 3 p.m. interactive show works, I am talking with my producer, Eric. This is very fluid of a situation because we have multiple guests that we like to book on the show and get your questions answered from them, and you can submit those. I am checking Facebook as we speak, live in real time, so I'm juggling all of those things right now. And also, we have a rough outline on an iPad that I also have on my desk. Aha, Yana, can you hear me?
I can you hear me?
All right, fantastic. Yes, thank you so much for being here. Gosh, you've gotten so much attention in the past couple days. You probably never imagined this would happen.
No, absolutely not.
Wow. And just for everybody, we're in the commercial break right now, but Yana's story, we introduced you a little few minutes ago. And so you happen to have an off day from the fields. Is that right?
Yeah.
Aha.
Yeah. So yesterday was my last day working in the fields, and I leave for medical school on Wednesday.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm packing in between now and then.
Wow, you have a lot going on for yourself. How, you have to tell me, where are you physically located? Because obviously your virtual background is gorgeous. It looks like Tahoe.
Thank you. It's Oaxaca. But right now I'm in Eastern Washington.
Got it, got it. And you are, can I call you a Stanford med student? Technically you are, you're incoming.
Yes.
What an
Yeah.
accomplishment.
Yeah, that's crazy to think.
Wow, okay, great. We have about 30 seconds before we head in. So I'm gonna say goodbye to you temporarily, but we'll join back in just a few seconds. Stay with us. And for all of you who are on Facebook, please, if you have any questions for Yana, write them in right now. I will try to get to as many as I can. Here we go.
7, 6, 5 seconds.
Okay.
4, 3.
We appreciate you for staying with us. Our next guest has her master's in epidemiology from Stanford, and she's about to start at Stanford Med. But listen to this, it's her part-time job that now has more than 60,000 retweets and 250,000 likes on Twitter. Yana Nino posted this on Wednesday, writing, "I'm about to finish up my time in the fields and wanted everyone to know that we, farm workers, are paid $7 for 2 gallons of blueberries. How much do you pay for your blueberries?" And as you can imagine, the tweet exploded. It certainly got my attention. Yana joins me now. Thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on all of your accomplishments.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so we have to start at the very beginning. Why did you want to write this tweet in the first place? Because you hadn't really been on social media that regularly until a couple days ago.
Right. Right. So I have been spending all the summer in the fields. You know, after I lost my job due to COVID, I started working in the fields, and in the fields we work, 40 to 60 hours a week. It's really variable. And so when I get home, I'm pretty tired, and, it's just really getting ready for the next day. And so, I'm moving into my medical career, and one of the communities that I'm part of on Twitter is the Med Twitter community. And there, it's a lot of medical professionals and like medical students, people in health fields. And so I was starting to think, and I was thinking about several of my peers who, contribute pretty regularly to that community. And I was thinking about my own perspective. And, I was like, I don't tweet regularly. I just retweet. I love to learn what's going on Twitter. And I was like, I don't really have a lot to tweet about. I was like, going on right now, and it was just, I'm working in the field. So I was like, you know what, that's an important perspective for people to consider within the medical field. And, I tweeted it out just thinking, oh, my friends are going to see it, and it'll be something that'll prompt them to reflect on their food. And it ended up going, reaching a lot more people than I thought.
Yeah, and why do you think so many people gravitated to this tweet? Because for me, full disclosure, you do not seem like the typical or what I envision a farm worker to be like. You really opened my eyes.
Yeah, so I think that, when we eat our daily food, or whenever we're eating our food, we don't really think about all the hands and all the lives that touched the food before it got to us. And so I think, one, people don't really think about that. So when they were prompted to reflect about, who harvested my blueberries, that tweet just kind of called that. But also, I think the disconnect between the amount that they pay and then how much they pay the workers, I think, was also a pretty stark difference for a lot of people who were surprised that the difference was so large. I got a lot of comments saying, I paid $7 for a pint of blueberries, and that's, such a difference in like volume from what I was getting paid. And so, that I think was pretty captivating for people.
Absolutely. And tell me a little bit about your family life, because you told me you have a farm working family and you've been in the fields on and off since you were 14, yet here you are about to enter med school, and your brothers and sisters have had this academic success as well.
Yeah, so my family is from southern Mexico. They're from a small village called San Pedro y San Pablo Tequistepec in Oaxaca, Mexico. And so my mom left there when she was pretty young and came to Eastern Washington and Eastern Oregon and started working in the fields. And I think, for her, learning the value of hard work was super important. So she took me with her to the fields when I was 14. And really there was when I kind of started thinking about my future. A lot of the people there really emphasized like the importance of education. A lot of being that they were my elders, I often got a lot of lectures and a lot of like life lessons imparted on me while we're working. And so a lot of them emphasized like, yes, go get your education, like come back and help us, come back to your community one day. And that really inspired me and drove me through my education. and really prompted me to look and dream bigger.
Yeah.
And so my siblings, after I got into college, I was the first in my family to do so. My mom doesn't speak English.
Wow.
After I did that, I was like, okay, I want this same level of support and success for my siblings. And so I also helped them through the college application process, letting them know everything that I had learned, and really mentoring, like taking a very active role in mentoring them. And so my sister is just graduated. She graduated from Brown University, and she studied software engineering. And my brother is a rising junior now at Bowdoin, and he's also studying computer science because my sister loves her field, and they're both big problem solvers. And then my youngest brother just graduated high school, and he's going to the University of Washington, and he's interested in some sort of engineering, not really sure yet.
Oh my gosh, your family must be so insanely proud of each and every one of you. I think your story resonates a lot with other children of immigrants because you see your parents work so hard and you just want to do them, do them justice.
Yeah.
We don't have very much time, but I do want to ask you this because you've seen a lot of positive encouragement and also a lot of negativity on social media. What is your message to the world going forward after this experience of what you've learned on social media as well from people?
I think that something that I've been thinking a lot about is really humanizing immigrants and humanizing the people that have these essential jobs. We do see a lot of outbreaks of COVID among these vulnerable populations that have to work, and they tell us like, you feed this nation and things, but we don't really feel that appreciation. I think appreciate the people that are out there right now working those essential jobs, protect them, wear your masks, and really give thanks that there's people out there bearing the difficulties of this time.
Absolutely. Yana, you are such a gem. Thank you for spending some time with us. I know you work very long hours in extreme heat sometimes. So once again, thanks to you and to everyone out there. Don't go anywhere. We're taking a break online, but that conversation once again continues on Facebook and abc7news.com.
In commercial break.
Okay. 2 more minutes. Okay, Yana, thank you. You were so terrific.
Thank you. Yeah. I feel kind of nervous.
No, we are on Facebook, and I'm just, if you can stay with us for just 2 minutes, let me see if I've gotten any good questions or any good comments from people right now. Let me scroll through. There are so wow, everyone. Some people, Arlette says, amazing. Some people say that you are a wonderful role model and that they are just so impressed by you and that you're doing a really wonderful thing and that you are, very refreshing. So how have you, what would you want to say to all of them? Because it's not every day we hear from someone so accomplished, so well-spoken, and not above working in the fields alongside, their family.
Right. I would like to give thanks. I think that's also something that I've seen on Twitter lives. A lot of people giving thanks and gratitude. And, it's really touched my heart because when you're out there in like 100-degree heat, it can be hard to really like appreciate and feel appreciated and really see the meaning behind what you're doing. And it's easy to get discouraged. But when, you have all these people really expressing admiration and giving thanks for the food, you really start to reflect on the importance of your job. And it's seen as I've gotten a lot of comments about how it's such a like, oh, what is a Stanford grad doing out there, like supposed to show that your college degree means nothing. And I think that is not necessarily true because picking blueberries takes so much skill. And even though I've been out there for a while, I'm not the best blueberry picker, but there's men who are out there, women who are out there that are so good at it and have these skills that I'm just like, how do you pick so fast? So yeah, thank you. Thank you for all the kindness and all the generosity that everyone has shown me.
Okay, Yana, we got to get back on the air, but once again, I'm going to connect with you for another story. So best of luck to you and expect something from me soon. Cheers.
8,
okay.
7, 6, 5,
okay.
4, 3, 2.
What a fascinating day it has been. Thank you so much for joining us on this interactive show, Getting Answers. We talked with Dr. Peter Chin Hong about COVID-19 and also his latest message of wear a mask. We will be here every weekday at 3 on air and online, streaming and getting your questions answered. Stay with us for ABC7 News at 4 in just a few moments. All right, Facebook, I miscalculated the time. So I said, stay with us in a few moments, world news, but I didn't get a chance to say that. But anyway, world news is next. If you are turning on your TV, I will be back here at the desk at 4 p.m. So I will hopefully see you then. Make sure to find me on Facebook as well. I am Dion Lim TV. See ya.